with CBD, it's not a cure-all. It's part of a process. It includes wanting to relax. If you're just going to be like, yeah, let's see it work, you're probably not going to get a whole lot out of it.
This month's sponsor is Triple Whale. Supercharge your ad campaigns with their revolutionary analytics platform, because better data means better campaigns. If you're running any type of paid media, then you need to be using Triple Whale. Find out more at trytriplewhale.com. Hello and welcome back to the D2C Deep Dive. My name is Fraser and today we're going to be talking about CBD and also Wall Street. You wouldn't think that those two things mix together, but today we're joined by Jay from Bimble. He is an ex-Wall Street guy turned beekeeper turned CBD beverage brand owner. It's an amazing episode. We have an insight into what it's like to work on Wall Street, but also what it's like to sell and market a CBD drink, because it's harder than you think. It's a brilliant episode, and I'll see you on the other end of it. Jay, welcome to the D2C Deep Dive. It's currently 7 o'clock in the morning where you are, which, if you're watching this episode, there's a stunning lake behind you. It looks incredible. I'm in the middle of the city in like 30-degree UK heat, and it's horrific right now. How are you doing, Jay? How's the weather over there? How stunning is the morning? Because it looks incredible, by the way.
The weather is fantastic this morning, but it's going to be pretty thick and humid and hot later on. But right now the lake is glass. If you look closely, you might see this water skiing slalom course. There's a couple of buoys out there.
Yeah, amazing.
So yeah, it's not a bad way to wake up.
Yeah, certainly. So we were just talking before the call. You split your time between Manhattan, which is, you know, we're going to go into it later, but your ex-Wall Street, so New York makes sense, of course, and then your lake house where you are now, where you keep your bees. So, Jay, if people have no idea who you are, and, you know, Bimble, of course, is the brand that we're going to be talking about. Introduce yourself, introduce Bimble. You have a long story that we'll go into later, but give people the quick rundown.
Yeah, so I spent this is the second career for me. Bimble I spent a full career on Wall Street. I was a bond trader. I traded U.S. government bonds, which was kind of the more straightforward, honest side of the business. It wasn't the seamy side that you see in Wolf of Wall Street. But it was, I was managing a $4 billion portfolio. I was making markets in doing very large trades with some of the largest customers in the country. We were a primary dealer, which meant we had a direct line to the Federal Reserve. Before every Fed meeting, someone from the Fed would call me and talk to me about my opinions on inflation. It was part extreme fun, craziness, and certainly the other half was extreme stress and pressure.
Yeah, I imagine. And then from Wall Street, you were there for what, 30 years or so, I think I read.
I guess, I don't count. When you're my age, you don't count the years, but it was close to that.
and then from there, you got interested in CBD and then decided, well, actually, first of all, you got interested in beekeeping, right? Let's talk a bit about that, because you keep bees, which is, you definitely can't do that in Manhattan, right? Which is why you're where you are now.
Yeah, so occasionally you hear about someone that has a rooftop beehive, but it's almost impossible in Manhattan because every tenant has to agree. So I actually became a beekeeper by accident. Everyone thinks of trading floors as just like the movies, but there's actually a lot of downtime. And I was sitting talking to the guy across from me one day, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to take up beekeeping." I'm like, "Beekeeping? What are you doing that?" And he said, "Well, my kids have allergies and we have a lot of gardens." I said, "Well, I have allergies. I have a lot of gardens. I'll do it with you." And sure enough, like a lot of things, time came, he backed out, and I said, "All right, I'll do it." First couple of years I tried it. It was everything you would expect. I was terrible at it. And my wife, Janet, said, "Either you learn what you're doing or stop, because you can't keep killing bees." So that happened to coincide with the time where I decided one day I just got up and quit my job. I had enough. And I took a couple of years off, and one of the things I did was get better at beekeeping with
Mm,
that time, and I
wow.
became obsessed with it, as one will do when they take up beekeeping, because it's an unbelievable hobby. It's fascinating beyond end.
Yeah, they are incredible. What my parents, they have a friend which is also a beekeeper, and they kind of share a garden. And yeah, we always get the honey from him, which we pay way too much for, but I don't care because it tastes 10 times better than any other shop bought honey. But
Yeah.
it is incredible. So how how did you go? So for people who don't know, you run Bimble, which is a CBD
Mhm.
drink.
Yes.
Tell tell me about your journey from Wall Street
Yeah.
to beekeeping to CBD beverage brand, because that is like, talk
Mhm.
about, a switch.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that a little bit. Like, why? Where did that
Yeah.
come from?
Yeah, it was a moment of yeah. I lost my senses for a moment, I guess. But so I took, like I said, I took a couple of years off. Really traveled, studied about beekeeping. Just had fun. My wife and I. Our kids are a bit older already, so we had nothing really keeping us down. And then when it was time to bear down and start doing things, I was doing a lot of investing. I was managing some of my own money. I ended up getting very involved in cannabis investing, and I was very into it. Yeah, I became, early on like a cannabis expert. But being in the weed business didn't really resonate with me. Those days for me were a little behind me. But more importantly, we had a daughter in recovery, so it just didn't feel right to be,
Mhm.
selling weed when my daughter was being drug tested 3 times a week. So
Yeah.
um, that wasn't going to work. And then I learned about CBD, and something clicked. When I was on Wall Street trading, there were really only two ways to relieve stress. One was, smashing your phone on the desk and cursing and, being a total asshole, which I tried my best not to be. And the other was go out drinking. And
Yeah.
I didn't try so hard not to do that. And it was fun, but completely unhealthy. The hangovers were terrible. It got
Mhm.
harder as time went on. And to have something that's non-impairing that will still relieve stress, where you could at least take a break from drinking, it was something that just clicked. And then we decided to include beekeeping as part of the brand mission. So the drink that we developed is sweetened only with raw honey that we get from small scale sustainable beekeepers. So we're giving back. We're
Mm.
helping the beekeeping community with every bottle of Bimble.
That's amazing. I mean, so I, to be completely transparent, I have tried CBD. I have a vape which I now and again partake with
Uh-huh.
CBD in, and
Mhm.
I suffer from, as most people do, anxiety, depression,
Mhm.
stress,
Mhm.
all that stuff that
Yeah.
goes along with running a business, I imagine. And I can't remember the milligram of CBD I'm on, but it's fairly high because I just never felt the effects, or
Right.
at least what I was hoping the effects would be, which was the sigh of relief, the
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
feel good, right? And I'm not worrying or stressing, right?
Yeah.
But why with CBD? Because there's so many different ways to have it, right? You
Yep.
can have drops, you can have
Yep.
skin,
Yep.
literally
Yep.
the CBD in everything, isn't there as well
Yeah.
right now? But like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why
Yeah.
why did you decide to go down the route of a beverage and not like another CBD infused product?
Okay. So for me, the feeling of holding a bottle in your hand is in and of itself satisfying and
Mm,
comforting. And that, we all have muscle memory, and sitting around with a glass of a cocktail or a bottle of beer or whatever your fancy is, um, that's part of the feeling. That's part of the experience.
mm,
So I wanted to try my best to recreate that experience, because with CBD, it's not a cure-all. It's not a pill that you take it and you're cured. So it's part of a process that includes mindfulness, It includes wanting to relax. These are all necessary conditions for CBD to work. If you're just going to be like, yeah, let's see it work, yeah, you're probably not going to get a whole lot out of it. For me, beekeeping was a whole change of lifestyle, a zen, if you will. I think it's important to create, a full, uh, what Janet likes to call toolbox of ways to relax, and
Mm.
it can be a very important part of it, but it's probably not going to be enough if it's the only part of it.
Yeah. So do you think that that's probably why maybe CBD hasn't worked for me, is because I'm maybe looking at it as I want to relax. Done.
Yeah,
No, it's not
yeah.
worked. Move on.
So we could talk about this for like 5 hours,
I
because
bet.
obviously I've spent a lot of time thinking and experimenting with this. Um, a couple of things. CBD is part of the cannabis industry, and which has been both a blessing and a curse.
Mm.
It's a blessing because it benefits from the coolness factor of being cannabis, but the curse is people think they're going to get high or something like an instant experience that you feel. Whereas with CBD, it's more like what you're not feeling, which is stressed out. So you don't get that punch in the jaw. I know it's working. It's
Yeah.
something that builds and like you said, I think you have to take a lot of it. So when we first started looking at this, the drinks on the market had like 10 milligrams of CBD in them. But when I was doing my research, I'd ask someone, how much should I take to start? It would be a dropper full, which was 25 milligrams. And I think to myself, well, if the starter is 25, why
Mm.
would anyone put 10 milligrams in a drink? I mean, that's just a novelty drink. So we were driven to do something that people would actually feel. After a year on the market, I kind of felt like I had a lot of feedback like you. I'm not really
Mm.
feeling it. So we decided to reformulate. And rather than focus just on CBD, we could have gone the route of a lot of people do, ashwagandha and all these other things that, I'm not a big believer in them. I've never met anyone whose life was changed by ashwagandha. Um, but I do believe in the cannabis plant. So there were these minor cannabinoids that were crazy expensive at the time, but they were a lot more effective. So it was sort of like turbocharging the effect. So we decided to reduce the amount of CBD and add back in some of these cannabinoids. So we now have 4 milligrams of CBN, which is like the gold standard of cannabinoids, 2 milligrams of CBC, and 1.5 milligrams of CBG. So when you look at our lab results, our COA, you compare them to any other drink on the market, you could see in black and white we're different.
Mm.
We spend a factor of 5 to 10 times more on what's in the bottle than our competitors. But sometimes spending more is worth it. I
Yeah.
just didn't want to be. I hated when people said, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So so now it still doesn't do things for people, but I can say confidently, if you're going to feel an effect from any CBD drink, it's going to be Bimble.
This week's edition of the DTC Deep Dive is brought to you by Motion. Are you still using spreadsheets to track your creative ad reporting? Well, if you are, you should try Motion instead. Motion bridges the gap with your creative team through visual and digestive reports so they can make engaging content that actually converts. With one click, you can share insights with your team and add members to your workspace so they can easily deep dive into reports on their own. Motion makes it super easy to identify key drivers for performance and helps eliminate the guesswork in the creative production process. Join the 500 plus teams like Huel, The Ridge, and Foxwell Digital in using Motion to improve their ad results. Say goodbye to creative fatigue and try Motion for yourself with a 14-day free trial at motionapp.com. You've kind of explained there about, technically how you've separated yourself from the other CBD drinks on the market. But how do you go about communicating that to the customer? Because that's quite difficult, I think, isn't it? Because you just mentioned a load of things there, and that went right over my head. I'm kind of putting my trust in you that should be in there, right? But yeah, how do you communicate that to a customer to say, we are different, this is why we're different? You know, it must be a difficult task.
So it's as you say, it's an extremely difficult task. When we've done customer surveys, why do you drink Bimble? 84% said taste, and maybe less than 5% said because of the CBD formulation. So yeah, no one gets it. Add to the fact that you're not allowed to say anything when you advertise.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Yeah.
Yeah. So for a lot of people, that's a reason not to be in the CBD business, because it's impossible to advertise. For me, that's the challenge. That's what I did for a living, is try to find the cracks, where the white space where you can navigate and find opportunities. So for me, I love trying to figure out ways of getting around the CBD restrictions, when advertising on social, paid social in particular. But yeah, it's very difficult. And the truth is, most people don't care. What they do care about is the fact that they are stressed out and they're dying for solutions to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to keep it a little simpler. I always have to, cover my mouth when I start talking about cannabinoids, but it just comes out sometimes.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I mean, that was, like I mentioned, that was my next question, is how do you go about advertising this? Because it is so difficult to advertise anything like this on paid social. You know, a lot of platforms outright ban it. You're not allowed to do this, even though it's not, it is legal. It's not a drug, right? You're not pushing heroin, right? So like what are those white spaces that you found where you've been able to, able to advertise CBD?
So clearly, no one has found the holy grail when it comes to this. There are no household CBD names. We're always experimenting, and frankly, it's we're very guarded with the few things that sometimes work. We try to do a lot of events. Getting bottles in hand is really a big challenge for us, because we're an expensive drink. I mean, we're $6 a bottle. We are pretty free with the 20% off promos, so even $5 a bottle. For someone who's never tried it before, because we're a glass bottle, we have really no way of sending a single bottle. So the smallest order is $40, and that's tough. That's a tough ask for people. So we try to do as many live events as we can to get bottles in hands. The influencer route would be the perfect thing for us, but we haven't found a lot of success with that, frankly. It's the ads, we've been able to do some advertising. We've never, taking everything into account, we've never had a ROAS of even 1. It's always been a sub 1 ROAS, so it's hard to keep that up. But we're always trying. We're in the middle of a new campaign on Instagram. We're experimenting. I'd rather not talk about it until it works, but sometimes I feel like Ralph Cramden, always trying things that fail.
Yeah. I mean, that is the DTC space. As everyone says, if you don't test, then you don't know, and that's even more true, I think, in the CBD space, isn't it? That you don't really know until you press go, and then hopefully it works.
But another interesting thing that happened to us recently. I've spent this year just really doing a deep dive into the DTC space. That's how we met. And I had a call with someone, and then a follow-up call with someone that does a lot of writing and strategy for one of the very successful THC drinks. And she said to us, she was taking some time off, so she couldn't work with us. And she said to us, if I spent a full month thinking about this, I'd come up with the same answer I'm going to give you now. You guys should be going after an older demographic. You know, everyone's going after Gen Zs, and Gen Zs don't even like CBD. You should be going after an older crowd that you can speak to naturally, and that's what we're trying to do now as well.
Yeah.
Target an older audience, 40 to 60. No one's really doing that.
Yeah.
On the flip side, it's also hard to find people to work with that can do that. Everyone's young enough to be my kid.
Yeah, no, I think that is, you know, a very good point. Is when most people go to launch products, the first demographic they go to, you know, is, I don't know, 18 to 25, probably, right? Like that's whereas, you know, we have worked with a lot of clients which are aiming at that older demo, and quite a lot of the time, you know, their ads are way better than these companies which are aiming at 18 to 25, right? Because there isn't much out there for the older demo. They jumping on that way faster, right? And their conversions are much higher, so that does make sense, right? I think a CBD drink for that demo would be perfect, you know. So I think that's a solid idea. When you went into Bimble, did you have a plan, right? Because most people, when they launch an e-com product, they already have history in paid media, probably. They might have already ran an e-com brand. They might have worked for an e-com brand or a marketing agency. You came from Wall Street, very different, and also beekeeping. So you kind of knew, you know, you knew the business side of stuff, I guess. But then DTC must have been completely new. Like, did you have a plan going forward, like, or did you just go, I'm just going to do it and find out on the way?
Yeah. So when I started, talk about a leave of my senses. So I knew nothing about CBD. I knew nothing about the beverage industry. I had never run a company. I knew nothing about marketing. Sounds like the perfect time to start a business.
It
right?
does, yeah, always.
So luckily, about a month or two into it, my wife Janet has she used to produce TV commercials, so she has a background in marketing and advertising. And she said to me, "How are you going to brand this?" I said, "Oh, I'll just hire someone." And she said, "I'll tell you what, I'll help you for a couple of months." And we're still working together, so we became a husband and wife team. And 20 years ago, it never would have worked, but here we are. We're still doing it. So
Amazing.
another reason to use CBD, because it helps your marriage.
Perfect. Yeah, there's a selling point, I think, for most people.
But the truth is, when we launched, I was never thinking about DTC. I was thinking about getting on shelves. And in the first year, we were on about 200 stores, as they call it, in the New York metropolitan area, doing fairly well, toe to toe with some of the bigger competitors in New York. And then COVID hit. We weren't well funded, and it just hit us like a ton of bricks. So we went from 200 stores to 0 in overnight. That happened to be the time we just rebranded and reformulated. So we had a warehouse full of Bimbo. We produced March 3rd of 2020, and no one to ship it to. So what do? You do what any rational person would do. You become a DTC brand. I think a lot of people tried that during COVID. For us, it has worked. We were lucky because of Janet's connections in the ad world. No one was working back then. We always talk about the bad things about COVID, but there were some silver linings.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
There was no traffic in New York. That was a silver lining.
I bet.
But also, we had access to people that we would never in our wildest dreams be able to afford. And they were just, hey, yeah, I'll help you. I'm not doing anything right now. And so we were able to build a great looking website, get copywriting by people who normally never do things like that. Of course, it all had to change because it didn't convert. So we had to hire a performance team to change it. But it's been a lot of fun for me. You know, when you start your first startup at the age of 60, um, you know, there's a lot of things you can learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately, I consider myself tech savvy, so it's not so bad.
That's an interesting question, actually. So you went from being in a ton of stores and, you know, seeing great numbers there to then D2C. Are you planning on getting back in stores now that things are slowly getting back to normal? Are you happy with D2C?
So I am not. I'm in no rush to get back into stores because, first of all, it's really difficult,
Mm,
and it's it costs a lot of money to support. You have to hire boots on the ground. You have to give deep discounts. You have to deal with distributors. Um, it also, one of lessons learned, you never want to be in a situation where the other party has all the leverage. You have no
mm,
leverage. And that's where I found myself early on, basically begging people to carry a CBD drink because they
yeah.
really didn't want to. Um, and it's just not a great it's not a great equation for success. I'd much rather build up the brand DTC wise, get people to recognize it, um, and so that if it ever does go back into stores, people will want to buy it. There'll be enough turnaround, and then
Yeah.
distributors want to carry it. Uh, so no, I'm really not in a rush. I have a couple of small distributors now, uh, but that's not my primary focus. My primary focus is DTC.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. We've spoken to a few brands on here which are a mix between retail and D2C, and it works for some people. Other people just like, I've tried it, not into it, too much commitment. I'd much rather be in control of my own destiny, which I think is what D2C is, right? You can control how many sales you do, you can control the stock, who's buying it, and more importantly, I think you can track where those sales are coming from, which is, it's very difficult to track anything when it comes to retail, right? So now yeah, exactly, yeah. So now that you're well into D2C and you're enjoying it, like, what are your plans for Bimble next, right? Are you going to be launching a load of new SKUs, a load of new flavors? Are you going to be focusing down? Are
Yeah, yeah.
where's the
Well,
direction?
so to be 100% transparent, we're not particularly well capitalized. Most of it is self-funded, and we're at a point where we need to see if this is going to work. So
Mm,
we're actually making a big push into doing a lot of testing in digital marketing, and a lot is going to be dependent on the success of that. One lesson I did learn is you can't experiment unless you spend money. Um, in the past, I've kind of said, well, I'll spend a little bit. If it works, I'll spend more.
mm,
That I've learned that doesn't work. So we're significantly increasing our budget. From minuscule to small,
mm-hmm.
but still on a percentage wise, but we were spending 5 times the most we ever spent, and hoping to spend more, and that's really going to guide the future of Bimble.
Yeah,
Whether we can find our niche, because um, you know we are the most highly differentiated drink on the market. We probably taste the best. We use the best ingredients. We give a shit about what's in the bottle. We're not young kids who are just trying to make a quick buck. We're not vitamin water that's trying to tell you that what's in their drink is going to do something for you when it doesn't. But if people don't buy it, that's it's kind of like Wall Street. If you don't have the P&L, it doesn't matter if you were right about
yeah,
something. You need to make the money,
yeah.
and so that's where we're at now.
Yeah, and I actually mentioned about Wall Street. What is there anything in particular that you learn in your days on Wall Street which you think transfer into DTC that have kind of given you that competitive edge, which has allowed you to get further than maybe others, because I think Wall Street is such an incredible job. And I mean, not a lot of people know what even goes on. All we think is Wolf of Wall Street, right? So like, what has there been anything that stands out to you, which is like, thank goodness I did Wall Street, because I would not be where I am now in business without it.
I've had a couple of things. Well, when we were doing a lot of retail, the shocking thing is on Wall Street, say what you want, everyone pays their bills, right? Trade sell the next day, everyone pays. In the real world, people don't pay. I was shocked at that. We had a very high default rate when we were self-distributing. That was just shocking to me. The pace of the world is much different. I was used to, if I had asked someone a question, they would get back to me within a day. Now when I talk to people, hey, can I call you back in 2 weeks? I'm like, 2 weeks?
Yeah, yeah.
What? I won't even remember the question in 2 weeks. So that was a big difference. I think, in Wall Street, you have to always, like a shark, you have to always move forward. You have to always be on it. And that's, that's a lesson for running your own business also. When you're not working, you're not earning. You're not moving forward. I think that's the biggest similarity between the two careers.
Yeah, and at the moment, the US, the UK, the whole world actually is probably heading into a rather difficult financial time. Do you think there's things that you've learned in Wall Street which might help you if a recession comes around, and any advice to give to fellow D2C business owners which might be a little bit worried?
Yeah. So people, I think we're okay because people always need to relieve their stress. People always need products that they find are part of their daily routine, which our subscriber base certainly have a daily routine of drinking Bimble. I think it's really product based for recessions. If people can do without it, they're going to do without it. Obviously you have to tighten your belts, make sure you're not wasting money where you can. But those are, you can find that out from anyone. My areas of expertise are more like explaining where inflation is going to be in a year from now, or whether there will be a recession. I'm not quite convinced either of those are going to be as bad a year from now as people think. So
yeah, I mean
I'm generally contrarian. So.
Yeah, I was going to mention about that. Has that given you the advantage? Because you know, in your past job, you can kind of predict where these things are going. So maybe you can make, moves in the industry which allow you to kind of have that advantage. Are you able to do that, or is that just like not a thing?
It's more restricted to taking advantage of getting short S&Ps or something, but it's not. I think being concerned about inflation, there were certainly things that we were able to do to order in bulk and lock in prices, but not a whole lot that we could do to protect ourselves. We're in the same boat as everyone else. There are no futures markets in CBD where I can hedge my inventory. So,
Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. The best of luck with Bimble. I'm really excited to see where you go. Good luck with the bees. Hopefully you don't get stung too much. That would be the worst nightmare about it. But carry on doing what you're doing. It's been incredible speaking.
You too. Great talking to you.
And that's it for the D2C Deep Dive this week. Thanks very much for listening, as always, or watching. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Drop me a follow on Twitter. It's just @SourFraser, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.